Hello, everybody. Welcome. This is Syracuse Basketball Postgame presented by Krause Health. We're live here on Facebook. We're live on YouTube and Twitter as well. And we're coming off the heels of one of the most stunning, shocking, frankly, pathetic, pitiful performances that we've seen a Syracuse basketball team put up in a while. It's the fourth straight game that Syracuse has lost by 17 or more points. Those previous three, Duke, Clemson, and Pittsburgh, all teams at the top of the league, all teams that should make the NCAA tournament. Clemson still kind of on the edge looking in at this point. Georgia Tech, the second worst team in the ACC, a team at 4-14 in the league coming in, 12-17 overall coming in. Not only beat Syracuse, they blow out Syracuse by a final score of 96-76. I know you guys have a lot to say about this one, and we're going to get to your comments here shortly, but this is one of the most stunning things I have ever seen in covering Syracuse basketball, certainly living here in Syracuse, New York, my entire life. We're just seeing the crash landing of the Jim Boeheim era before our very eyes. To see this defense just utterly unable to stop Georgia Tech, of all people, hitting 18 three-pointers, it's just stunning to see. It's stunning by standards. I mean, defense is the hallmark. Defense is what Jim Boeheim is known for more than anything. That 2-3 zone has just been pushed into irrelevance here as Syracuse will enter its final game of the regular season against Wake Forest on Saturday. And what a wave of nostalgia we're going to get and we're going to need at that game in the 20th anniversary of the 2003 national championship team. It will coincide with just a stunning free fall of Syracuse basketball. Overall, Syracuse falls to 16-14, 9-10 in ACC play. And here we go. I'm just going to start highlighting some of the comments that you have here, and I'm sure there's a lot of emotion over there. And listen, before we get into the comments, I wanted to make sure before we came on tonight to watch Jim Boeheim's press conference, just to see what he could say about this. Jim was calm. He was almost gracious in the way he answered these questions. Certainly not happy, obviously, about what he was saying there, but almost resigned to fate. Like it just, in the past, Jim would be, confrontational. He would be defiant. He would challenge things coming from reporters on things like this. But what can you say after that display, not only in this game, but we have seen in the last four games and what we are seeing come to an end here? And I think what we're seeing come to an end here, guys, is the end of the Jim Boeheim era. I think we're there. I think we have crossed that bridge, and I think you're going to have a very hard time if you are John Wildhack, if you are Ken Severud, if you're Jim Boeheim, frankly, to convince people that maintaining this with Boeheim is the answer going forward. And look, that's not to take anything away from what Jim Boeheim has accomplished as a Hall of Fame head coach and everything that we have watched over these past 47 years. But, it's all about what's ahead of you in the windshield and not what's behind you in the rearview mirror. And I think it's going to be a hard sell, no matter what they do in the transfer portal, no matter who comes back or who doesn't come back. And the motivation for a lot of these players to come back at this point, man, I would give them a lot of credit if they gave it a go. But I also would understand if this thing just kind of disbanded at the end and you moved on either to Jerry McNamara, who gets his jersey retired on Saturday, don't forget, along with Hakeem Warwick, moved on to Red Autry, or just went out there and did a search, because it feels like this could be it. It really does. I know a lot of people have said that and have called for that. And, we've talked about that for years, frankly, but now it feels like it. And to see Jim just as resigned as he was to what he watched and what he's watching. And I mean, that the helpless feeling he must have right now, that no matter what he's trying is not working. And it's getting worse. Here we are at the end of the season. It's going to be March 1st. Tomorrow, we speak live here tonight on Tuesday night, and this team is getting progressively worse at the end of the year. So I just wanted to say that before we get into it, because I know you guys are pretty fired up. So I'm just going to go hot and heavy here. Let's hit the comments. Chris, Tony, Doug, Matt's just here to see what the haters have to say. There's Aaron saying that. Brian saying, I can't do this to myself. Hope you have something good to report after Wake Forest. I mean, Jerry and Hakeem's jerseys are going up. The 2003 team will be honored. That's pretty much the only good thing you can say, to be honest, at this point. Joe says, stop the ride. I want to get off. Kathy notes that this team is going backwards. Good evening to Richard. Looks like a team that has given up no fight tonight. Guys, they played man-to-man defense after Jim in the last press conference says, you can ask me this 100 times. It's not going to happen. We're bad at man-to-man. And the point has been, well, if you're bad at man-to-man, I'd like to see bad because your zone has been pathetic, frankly, at this point. It doesn't match the players. Opponents are not intimidated by it anymore. I mean, Georgia Tech, guys, one of the worst offensive teams in the league, 257th in the country in scoring, drops 18 3-pointers on you. I mean, that just speaks for itself, frankly. Jamie says, for the love of all that's holy, let's make some changes before we drive this program any further into the basement. I bleed orange, but this is just pitiful. Brian saying, crappy game notwithstanding, that's a rockin' vest. There we go. Put it on by necessity, Brian. It's a little chilly in my house tonight. So I said, ooh, got to warm up a little bit here. Crank that heat up a little bit. Antonio says, Boeheim, now a liability to the program in this league. Every day he stays in this job is the year that a future coach will have to recover from. Well said there from Antonio in that way. What is Wildhack encouraged by with this program? You know, earlier today, John Wildhack did a round of interviews. He said he's still optimistic about this team. He acknowledged, like any athletic director, you have a list of coaches in any sport, but he said he wanted to see what this team does in the final 2 regular season games and whatever comes in the ACC tournament. You know, and frankly, I'm sure you guys might feel this way, and I'll just keep highlighting your comments as we go here. I think the point is you just want this to be over, right? And I hate to say that because I feel horrible for the players. I feel horrible for the diehard fans. I feel horrible for a lot of people involved in this, but it just, what good will it do you to go any further here? I mean, this team obviously cannot win the ACC tournament. They've lost 4 straight games by 17 points to the top of the league and the bottom of the league. You got to play some defense to do that. The NIT would be a waste of time for this team. Any postseason tournament that's not the NCAA tournament, I don't think you gain anything. You know, the valuable experience that some people would say. I think you just want it to be over now. Not that I don't root for this team to lose. I don't think you guys would root for this team to lose. I watch the games and I analyze the games as fans. I think you always root for your team to win, but I think let's just get through Wake Forest, and not that you root for a team to lose, but the ACC tournament to wrap up here, and then let's just kind of move on. And then let's just kind of see what the process is going to be here to arrange the end. I mean, that's where we're at here. And you know, Jim has earned a lot of equity in a lot of ways, as John Wildhack has said, to do this as respectfully as possible. He certainly had opportunities in the past. You know, after that 2021 NCAA tournament run, you lose in the Sweet 16 to Houston. What a perfect walk-off that would have been. You know, even last year, Buddy and Jimmy. You know, Buddy gets suspended from the Duke ACC tournament game for the punch he threw against Florida State. Jimmy goes off for 28 points. You lose to Duke. You get eliminated. You end a losing season. I can understand why Jim wouldn't want to end on a losing season and not coach the 6 freshmen that he said he would coach. But there's just been plenty of opportunities before this. Now it's like I don't think you can reasonably talk anybody into saying we have to go forward with this. Like, the end is on our doorstep. It's right here. You just can't deny that anymore. And it's sad that it ends this way. You know, there's an old expression goes something along the lines of nothing would end well unless it wouldn't end kind of way. And you hate to see it end this way. You want to see it end with a tournament run. You want to see it end on a high note, but I just don't think that's possible now. I don't think that is possible at this point. And I think you're just going to lose a lot of people one way or the other if you keep going with this. Comments are coming hot and heavy, ladies and gentlemen. I am trying to keep up with you here. Tony, I just have to disagree with you here. A lot of people say go get Pitino. Absolutely not. Absolutely not. I'm sorry. I have no interest in that whatsoever. Whoever you get to come in be it next year or whatever the case may be. You want it to be a long-term answer, not a short-term answer. Rick Pitino is not a long-term answer, not to mention Rick Pitino, I'll be kind when I say it has a bit of a questionable resume, right? So let's just not go there. There's a lot of other choices out there, to be frank here. Chris saying they won't pay for a top-tier coach. Look, this is the thing for Boeheim. For years, you've gotten a bargain in that case, right? That's why I feel like probably the Jerry McNamara route, the Adrian Autry route is going to be the way they go, because you're going to have to pay a coach. Somebody brought up today on my radio show, Matt Langle of Colgate, right? If you're looking at other coaches from outside the family, if you will, there's somebody you could get, wouldn't have to pay $7, $8, $9 million a year. You could probably pay him what you're paying Jim Boeheim now, frankly, $2, $3 million to make that step up. So if you can find a coach like that, you can save yourself some money. But, if you're going for the big name out there, yeah, you're in the $6 to $8 million range. And they have gotten away with paying Jim only about $2 million per year at this point. Going so fast, I can barely read them, ladies and gentlemen, but I know you guys need to vent a little bit here. You know what? Honestly, Aaron, I don't say this with any sarcasm whatsoever. I'm honestly curious what a Jim Boeheim supporter says right now. And I don't say that with any malice or any sarcasm. I'm genuinely curious. The people left on Boeheim's Hill saying he is still the answer to the question. I'd like to know what you have to say. And if somebody gets in the chat and says that, you could disagree, you guys, but don't talk them down. Don't mock them, right? Let's give them their forum to say what they have to say. You're more than welcome to disagree, but I'm honestly curious what they think at this point. I know you were kind of saying that sarcastically, but what do you say? How do you defend this? Like it's you're defending somebody at one of the real low points. It's got to be one of the lowest points of Jim Boeheim's tenure, if not the lowest. The previous one being the losing season a year ago. And, they might not have a losing season. They lose to Wake Forest and lose in the first round of the ACC tournament. That's 16-16. That's a 500 year. I mean, that's not good either. Let's see. Brent, how do you handicap Boeheim coming back? Chris, I can't see it now. I just can't see it. It would be, and I know we're just off the emotion of this loss, but I mean, Wake Forest, even if you rally and you win that game, go into the ACC tournament, maybe win one or two there if you can somehow pull the best out of this team after it's hit rock bottom. And this is about as rock bottom as it gets, right? Then what, right? If you can convince Judah Mintz to come back and Joe Girard to come back and Jesse Edwards to come back and somehow have a gangbusters run in the transfer portal, maybe I could see it, but that's going to be much more difficult at this point, seeing how this team has just crash landed at this point. It can be done, and I think you can kind of rally the troops, if you will, if there is a change. But I don't see how you can do it with Boeheim now. And I just don't want to sit here and pick on Boeheim the whole time, because the man does deserve some credit and some respect for what's happened to this point. But, if you're asking me to analyze the situation as is in the moment, it's hard to say, go ahead, rubber stamp yet another year. I mean, that's hard to say at this point if you just want to look at it objectively, right? Let's see. Just kind of catching up with you guys here. Mike, Jim Boeheim said something very interesting about Chris Bell in the post-game press conference. He said he was actually set to come back into the starting lineup in this game, but he made, I think Jim termed it, 5 or 6 plays in a row at practice where he didn't really do anything and kind of took himself out of the lineup. Now, Chris had a wrap on his hand at the Pitt game, and Jim has not noted if he's injured. He said he was available for that game. He was available for this game, but didn't play. And a lot of that has to do with effort. A lot of this has to do with what's happening at practice, right? I think Michael Antonio makes a good point. No matter what happens, don't drive out Boeheim with malice. He built the greatness of this program, deserves better. I think we can be honest about whether you think he should come back or not and do it respectfully. I think that's fair. Let's see. No NIT if we lose first round. That would be much. Guys, what's back on the table here, by the way? It was looking pretty good that Syracuse was going to start the ACC tournament on Wednesday. So you skip those Tuesday games, those first round games, the double seed games. They might fall back into that. I'll have to check it after the rest of the scores come in from the ACC. We'll certainly know more about this tomorrow. We're going to be tracking it for you on syracuse.com, and we'll certainly know a lot more about it tomorrow. But they might fall into the Tuesday game. That's just sad to think about if they lose to Wake Forest and then lose on Tuesday at the ACC tournament. And that's how this whole thing comes together. That's just the end of the story. It's certainly not the whole story, but that could be what we're heading for at this point. Adam says, I can't imagine Boeheim coming back. That team could be legit awful considering what Syracuse is likely to lose in the portal. And no recruits coming in. Yeah, Marcus Adams saying today, by the way, speaking of the recruits of the class of 2023, that he's going to take a visit at UCLA. So there's a prospect that Syracuse has been tracking for the class of 2023, and you might not even get at this point. The only one is William Patterson, the 7-2 project you mentioned, that has made a commitment to Syracuse. A vote to go get Mike Hopkins back from Seattle and Washington. Iris, always good to see you, says I would be really disappointed if the next coach was Autry or McNamara at this point. Ryan says, just feels like he's staying only to make sure Huggins at West Virginia doesn't pass him for the win record so he can stay number 2 to Coach K. If you want Boeheim gone, make a replacement suggestion. I'd suggest this athletic department going after Kansas assistant Norm Roberts, Kentucky assistant John Bruiser Flint, or Xavier head coach Sean Miller. Some suggestions there. A couple more here. Jason Hart, Michael Rhodes, legendary high school coach Kevin Boyle. Yeah, look, if John Wildhack makes the decision that he feels he's going to go outside the program, he can cast a wide net. This is an ACC program with a top-level facility, one of the best practice facilities in the country, one of the most passionate fan bases in college basketball. It's going to be tough no matter who it is to be the guy after the guy. I mean, you're taking over for Jim Boeheim, who, built Syracuse basketball into what it is, and as a legend, as a Hall of Famer, as all the things that we've been talking about for years here. You don't need me to give you the resume. So being the guy after the guy, that's tough. That is tough, one way or the other. Let's see. I'll address this here. You're a sports commentator trying to put out controversial statements that are actually, frankly, age discrimination and not supportive of the Orange team or the fans. Or you're just trying to justify your existence with your negativity. No, I'm being honest with you. That's my job, is to be objective and to be honest with you. I'm not trying to make a name for myself or anything. I mean, frankly, I have the job. I'm the columnist at syracuse.com. I do a local radio show. I don't have to make controversial statements to get attention. I get attention by virtue of the position I'm in. It's not my job to support the team. It's my job to analyze the team and talk about the team, as honestly and as objectively as I can. And I grew up here. Okay. I didn't parachute in here, and nothing against the kids that do this, because they're amazing kids. I teach them at Syracuse University, but I didn't come from out of town and I'm like a Newhouse student trying to make a name for myself. I grew up here. Okay. I was in the stands at the Carrier Dome watching those games with my dad as a fan before I got into the media business. So I'm sorry you feel that way, but that's not what I'm trying to do here. I don't see how you can look at this any other way. I mean, you can have your opinion, certainly, and you have it, but it's not my job to support the team. It's my job to analyze the team. When things are going well, I write about that, and I say that. I mean, that national championship year, right? I've written plenty of positive things and said plenty of positive things about this team. So just to address that, I mean, the answer is no. I'm not a shock jock. I tell you what's on my mind. That's my job. That is my responsibility to you as somebody that's in the position I'm in. So just to let you know where I'm coming from, you can agree or disagree with it, just to address that. Jerry says this program has carried Syracuse sports for years. Without top new blood, we will suffer for years. The AD knows he's got to get the best in here and quickly. Antonio says, Brent, I'd love to respectfully understand what your issues are with Rick Pitino. He was among Boeheim's first ever assistants. He won 2 national titles. And as I understand it, he was cleared of recent allegations. I just don't understand the issue. He could bring massive energy to this program. Well, Rick Pitino's got a lot of issues. He was cleared of certain things. Yeah, but he did a lot of things as a human being, I will say, that I think you could fully judge on. And I want a long-term answer. You know, how old's Rick Pitino? Like, you're going to bring in a coach. I don't know how old he is off the top of my head, but I'd rather, to be frank with you, I'd rather have Jerry McNamara in the position he's in, the connection he is, knows the program, knows the modern game. Not that Rick Pitino doesn't know the modern game, but let's just not get obsessed with old big name coaches. I'd rather find the up and comer as opposed to the guy that's, at some point on his way out here. And do I really have to remind you the things that Rick Pitino has gotten into? Nobody's perfect. Everybody's got flaws. Jim Boeheim's had some flaws personally, and NCAA sanctions and things that have happened in recent years. But guys, just think bigger than Pitino. Like, stop obsessing with Rick Pitino. It's ridiculous. He was a Syracuse assistant in the 1970s. Are we forgetting about what he did? Like, just go Google it if you forgot, right? I think you could do better. That's just my stance on that. You can do better. Pete says, is Boeheim leaving? Why the talk of other coaches? Pitino would come here for sure, but would Boeheim allow that? He'll have a lot to do with the next head coach. He might. Look, Jim Boeheim called me on the radio and said that there's a plan in place for his succession if and when it takes place. I mean, my assumption is he didn't confirm this. He wouldn't say specifically what it was, but you got to think that's either Jerry or Red. But, you also have to keep your mind open about these things. So you keep it in the family, or you cast a wide net and you bring in somebody who can take the resources available to you here at Syracuse and not only maintain, but actually try to make it better. For those that say, be careful what you wish for, this could get worse. It's hard to get worse than, what Syracuse has been in the last 10 years. They've been a middle of the road program in the ACC, which is not even, right now, one of the best leagues in college basketball. It's up there, but the Big 12 is better. The Big 10 was better last year. And the ACC had a lot of success in the tournament. Don't get me wrong, but Syracuse has had double-digit losses in the ACC every year running for 8 years. They made the Final Four run in 16. They made the Sweet 16 run in 2018, and of course a few years ago as well. But it's you have to think about who can come in and make it better with the infrastructure and the resources that are available to you, right? Boeheim had his run and absolutely made it an incredible thing here, right? And that deserves respect, but that's not a reason to keep going, right? It's hard to see it. I could be wrong. Sports is crazy. Crazier things have happened. We'll see what the end of the season brings here. But guys, we're talking about, listen to Georgia Tech by 20 points tonight, 4 straight games, having lost by 17 plus points. And that is Jim Boeheim's identity. That is what he's known for. That is in the first line in his obituary. You could put it on his gravestone. Zone defense. In the zone defense, this is one of the worst defensive performances in his tenure and in the history of the program, frankly, what we have seen. That's tough when that's your identity. That's what you are known for. And that's the worst part of this team right now. It just doesn't fit the current talent. It doesn't fit the game anymore. So many people hit threes. I don't think I have to explain it to you. It's just not there right now. We haven't even looked at the numbers for tonight because you guys have been so hot and heavy here tonight. A lot of people saying Nate Oates. Look, Nate Oates is a very good coach. PR-wise, that's going to be a tough move to make, considering what's happened at Alabama right now. Can Syracuse outpay Alabama? Do you really think Syracuse could outpay Alabama? Is Alabama a better job than Syracuse right now in basketball? The answer is yes. They're number 2 in the country. They can win the national championship. So why would Nate Oates come to Syracuse if he is built a national title contender at Alabama right now and has the resources available to him? I don't know if I think Nate Oates, I think we're past that. I think you got to either go the up and comer route or go with your succession plan that's already in place, right? You guys keep saying Nate Oates. I'm telling you, you can't get Nate Oates. You can't get him. You can't pay him more than Alabama would pay him and what their boosters would do to keep him there. Not to mention, if more could come out of this situation with the shooting that happened there and the Brandon Miller situation. So you don't want to bring in Nate Oates and then find yourself in a messy public relations situation, right? And I just don't think you can get him. So I would give up on that pipe dream. I honestly think he's a pipe dream at this point. Danny Shays, I love Danny Shays, but to come in and coach, come on, guys. There you go. Adam says, bring in Coach Jack. Speaking of Coach Jack, listen, Greg Paulus, I don't know. That I would actually think about that. Chris Beard, a couple of people are saying here. Okay. And now here we go. Like the speculation is going to be underway. I don't think Jay Wright would come coach at Syracuse. He's retired. I don't think he's going to get back into coaching. And I don't know unless you threw, just a Brinks truck full of cash at him and gave him full autonomy here. I don't know if you could get Jay Wright. I think that's another name that's just out of reach for Syracuse. I don't want to sell Syracuse short. I think they could get a really good coach, a brand name coach. They'd have to pay him. But I think there's a few names that are just kind of beyond their reach, and we've said a couple of them at this point. John Wooden. Yeah, there you go. Use the modern technology we have, the deep fake technology, and bring back the hologram of John Wooden to coach the team. My goodness. We haven't looked at the numbers for tonight. We're 26 minutes into the show. Not that I want to torture you guys and do that, but we just have to put this in perspective here. Georgia Tech shot 52%. Guys, Syracuse shot 48%. You shoot 48% and lose by 20. That shows you the defense. That shows you the struggles. That shows you just the rock bottom, that the zone, the man-to-man, they could play the Chicago Bears 4-6 defense out there. They just can't defend anybody right now. Georgia Tech, 18 of 40 from three-point range. Syracuse, 4 of 17 from three-point range. That hurts. That's really all you need to know at this point. Like, that's the number. That's the red pen. You circle it 4 times. That was this game. Georgia Tech out-rebounded Syracuse 34-28. Nothing else really matters. I mean, just to look at some of the individual numbers for Georgia Tech. Miles Kelly, 30 points tonight. He goes 7 of 14 from three-point range. Lance Terry, 24 points. He goes 7 of 10 from three-point range. You had Kyle Sturdivant for Georgia Tech, 20 points. He hits a couple from three. All told, 4 different players hit threes for Georgia Tech. 5 different players hit threes for Pitt the other night when they dropped 16 on Syracuse. And Georgia Tech of all teams, tops what anybody prior to them did in this 4-game losing streak. That's now 16 times teams have hit 10 or more threes against Syracuse. It's now 9 times they've hit 13 or more. I'd like to check the 15 or more stat. That's probably up to about 3 or 4 teams that have done that now. So that's where we're at, friends. It's pretty sad. It's pretty sad. We were talking about Felicia Leggett-Jack and the women's team, though. I mean, look, as of today, they're in the tournament, according to Charlie Cream, who is the ESPN bracketologist. He's kind of the Joe Lenardi of women's basketball. They play NC State Thursday at 2:00 in the ACC tournament. They win that game, I think they're in. If they lose that game, I still think they could get in, but probably a better idea to win that game, because then you lose to Notre Dame. And I mean, Notre Dame's probably going to win the ACC tournament. So no harm, no foul there. So they're right on the edge of it. So we still could have a Syracuse basketball team to watch in March Madness. Go Coach Jack and company. Deja Fair was named all ACC first team today, all defensive team, one of the best players to ever play at Syracuse in just her 1 year, frankly. She's been just a surge of talent and a pleasure to watch. She'll probably end up going to the WNBA draft next year. But if she wants to come back, she does have eligibility. I don't think anybody would say no to that. And if she does come back with the other returning players that Syracuse has, and whatever they're bringing in recruiting wise, and whatever comes through the portal, like that could be a real contender next year. That could be a Final Four contender. So legit, seriously, when you have that kind of talent like Deja Fair. Here's a question from Iris: if Boeheim stays, where do you go from there? I mean, that's going to be a tough sell. Unless we know that's it. 1 more year, depending on who you bring back from this team, what you get in the portal. There's not much in recruiting right now, nor are they going to get much more in recruiting. Maybe add a Marcus Adams, and that'd be pretty much it. Who, by the way, would have to reclassify. to the class of 2023. So yeah, that's where we're at here at this point. Few more comments from you guys here, and then I got to get writing. Let's see. Vincent says it was one of the losses that the AD will talk to Boeheim about after this season is over. An embarrassing loss for Syracuse basketball. He deserves a good farewell, as Lori says. Brian says, let's focus some positive energy on the women's team. There you go. Take some of this boiling negative energy and frustration and focus it in on the ladies. So yeah, the men's soccer team win a national championship. The women's basketball team might end up in the tournament, which would be an incredible turnaround in one season from an 11-18 year. And I think the Syracuse women's lacrosse team, guys, true blue national championship contender. Just to keep that in mind once basketball season's over and looking for some areas to divert your energy, as they say. Dave says Felicia's a great example of the difference a coach can make. The team has no reason to be competitive this year, but Coach Jack made it happen. It can happen on the men's side too with the right coach. All right, I think we're going to end it there, guys. I know we could go all night here, okay? And we'll have more opportunities to discuss this, the end of the season, and what we're going to see here going forward. But for tonight, just one of the more just stunning, lackluster, that happened kind of losses for Syracuse. They dropped this one to Georgia Tech, 96-76. Syracuse falls to 16-14, 9-10 on the season. Their regular season finale coming on Saturday at the Dome against Wake Forest. And then after that, we shall see however long they can survive in the ACC tournament. And then not only the end of the season, but could be finally the end of an era here. That could be what we saw start to brew tonight. In the meantime, thanks for watching. Thanks for your great comments. Great stuff as always, ladies and gentlemen. Always appreciate you coming by. We'll be back Saturday night. A couple of notes. Thursday, Orange Weekly, don't forget, streams live at noon Eastern time on many of these same channels you're watching now. So we'll certainly talk a lot about this, but some other Syracuse sports issues as well. So that's Thursday at noon. You can watch the replay anytime on these channels here. We put a post up on syracuse.com if you missed the show live. And then Saturday night, so it's a 5 o'clock tip at the Dome, the 2003 celebration. And then we'll see what kind of basketball game we get after that, right? So that's our last regular season post-game show, and then we'll see how many we have from there in the ACC tournament, because certainly Syracuse not looking like they're going to make any kind of tournament beyond that. So try to enjoy the rest of your week. Appreciate your comments, guys. Thank you, Dr. Axe. So once again in session, Dale. Glad to help out. I appreciate you. Okay. Good stuff. We'll come back on Saturday for postgame. We'll come back on Thursday for Orange Weekly. In the meantime, thanks for watching Syracuse basketball postgame presented by Krause Health. We'll talk to you next time.